Hi and welcome, it's Shade here. Welcome to our Freebie Friday video. Today I'm talking about IRS withholding on real estate sales. And the question we usually get is, as a buyer, when do I need to withhold for IRS when I'm buying from a non-US resident? That question really depends. The answer to that depends on the situation. And so I think it's best to talk to a tax attorney to make sure that you're doing everything by the book, because the consequences are not good if the buyer accidentally withholds too little or doesn't withhold when they're supposed to. Then they might end up being responsible for whatever taxes IRS would come up with in the future. So talk to a tax attorney. If you don't want to do that, talk to a CPA. They usually know the answer to this question as well. But I'll go over the two exemptions that are most common. And what it is that IRS is trying to make sure that the non-US resident pays taxes on the sale of the property if they're supposed to pay taxes. And that way, when the buyer withholds, it's easier for IRS to get paid. And so the question is, are there any exemptions? And the answer to that is yes, there are exemptions in situations where the buyer doesn't need to withhold at all. And that's what you will need your tax attorney to figure out, or need the CPA to figure out for you. So the most common exemptions that we see, when the seller is not going to make any profit from the sale, and that's usually because the contract price is either exactly the same or less than the mortgage loan balance. So that means the seller is really not making anything. So you don't have to withhold, and you definitely don't have to report anything in that situation. The second most common exemption that we see is when the buyer is buying for the purpose of residing on that property for the next 2 years. So the buyer or the buyer's family would reside on that property for the next 2 years, and the purchase price is $300,000 or less. In that case, the IRS doesn't require you to withhold or report anything as the buyer. So, but in these situations, whenever there's an exemption, the buyer still has to fill out an affidavit swearing under oath to the facts as they are. And the buyer would keep a copy and also give a copy to the seller. And the seller still has to file a non-US resident tax return reporting the sale. But at least doing everything by the book would protect you as the buyer, so that you don't end up being responsible for anything that that IRS thinks that the seller might owe. All right, so make sure you do everything by the book in this case, because it's very important. And there's several exemptions out there other than the two that I mentioned, and you will need the help of a lawyer or a CPA to be able to figure that out. So hopefully everything is going well for you this weekend, and I will look forward to talking to you next time. Happy Friday.